How's it going, everybody? It's Wardy here, and we're back at it with our latest Big Mets update segment. This time, April 22nd, 2025, and I'm recording this the night prior, like I typically do, especially after an amazing Mets victory as they take down the Philadelphia Phillies by a final score in 5-4. Should have been 5-0, but unfortunately, we stretched things a little too thin there when Max Kranick got a little too far, and Edwin Diaz absolutely gets torched yet again by Bryson Stott. Not the first time we've seen that happen, sadly. But regardless, the Mets took that game one that we broke down in last night's post-game show. Check it out in case you guys haven't already for a full, thorough, deep dive on everything that transpired in that ball game, as we're going to further expand on some of those keynotes headlined by the continued dominance at the plate by Mr. Smile himself and Francisco Lindor, which now leads us to beg the question, is Francisco Lindor not only going to be an MVP candidate for the Mets this year, but could he be the best of the bunch between himself, Pete Alonso, and yes, Juan Soto? We will expand on that along with what is happening with this Mets bullpen after seeing Edwin Diaz falter yet again as he continues his shaky start to the 2025 season. The Mets currently have a reliever that's healthy and stored in AAA in Dedniel Nunez, and we have a key update on his front as everything is aligned for him to return to this Mets team as soon as pretty much possible. We're going to expand more on Nunez along with what's going on with guys in Francisco Alvarez and Jeff McNeil. When can we expect them to return? When they return, what will their roles exactly be in this Mets organization? That along with previewing this Game 2 matchup between the Mets and the Phillies that begins tonight that we're going to be doing an in-game watch party for, and a post-game coverage is what we'll get into. So thank you guys kindly for smashing that like and subscribe button as you first chime in. Let me know all your initial reactions in the comments down below, and let's just let it rip and get right into this one, everybody. As we know, the Mets won 5-4. They out-hit the Phillies by one hit, I believe 8-7 or so. The expected batting average far more in their favor than the Phillies, who really were scuffling the entire ballgame after Tyler McGill had, without question, his best start so far this year, matching a career-high 10 strikeouts. And the only reason why I'm not unrolling the red carpet on the Tyler McGill discussion as to is he the next big thing in this Mets rotation is because we have been there and we have done that with Tyler McGill before. But if he continues this trend the way that he is right now, everybody, the Mets may finally have something special McGill on the consistency front. The only thing that we're looking forward to seeing is that walk rate go down. The strikeouts are tremendous. He made that entire Phillies lineup headlined by Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, and everyone else and their mother look absolutely silly in that Game 1 victory there at Citi Field. But who stepped up the most without question for the Mets on the offensive end? It, of course, was our guy, Mr. Smile himself, our captain, and Francisco Lindor, everybody. And talk about a red-hot start to the season, everybody. This trumps what Lindor did to begin in what was a slow 2021, a faster-paced 2022, a slower 2023, and certainly a slow, very slow, sluggish slow 2024. Since Francisco Lindor has been shifted in the leadoff spot around mid-May of 2024, he has been an MVP candidate worthy player for the Mets organization, and that not only continued into postseason play, including NLDS heroics against the same Phillies team where there was a lot of shades of the same exact thing again. Fast forward to this series and to this start of the year, Francisco Lindor is not having his slow start. He is now off to a hot start, not even a full month into the regular season, with his latest game balling out big time with not one but two home runs because, of course, leadoff Lindor had a towering second decky shot to right to begin this one. Same exact spot that he parked one a day or so ago, and even parked one a couple days prior in that huge walk-off finale for the Mets in their victory over the Cardinals amongst the games in those 4-game sweeps. Then we saw another home run heroic later on this ball game with 2 outs, runners out the corners. Not a problem for Mr. Smile facing Ruiz, the reliever at the time for Philadelphia, coming in for Nola, and he rips one center right, eerily similar to where he landed a bomb off of Carlos Estevez there for the grand salami in the NLDS to secure the Mets series victory. But Francisco Lindor, everybody, we take a look just over his past couple of games now. If we really deep dive, especially going over the past just couple of games alone, we're talking like 3 games, not even more than that, 3 or 4 games at tops, and this is what he's done, everybody. Actually, let's not even talk 3 or 4 games. Let's just talk the past 2 games alone, because the past 4 games, he has 4 home runs in his past 4 games, so that's kind of elite. But his past 2 games just itself, he's 5 for 8 with a 625 average, 1 walk, 3 home runs, 2 of them being leadoff that we saw. 5 RBIs, and 5 runs scored. And the best part of it all is when asked about his continued dominance at the plate, Francisco Lindor is with the following quote: "Yeah, okay, I had 2 home runs, but at the end of the day, guys had quality at-bats today, and that's why we won." As selfless and as humble as a true leader that Francisco Lindor continues to be for this Mets team, everybody. And mind you, he entered pretty much this homestand for the most part, close to batting just under 400, and that has continued big time. Francisco Lindor now is batting a nice 284 with an 840 OPS on the regular season this year, and he's not only looking like one of the best players to begin the season for the Mets, but he is yet again truly showcasing his worth as, without question, the most important person, not only in this lineup, but both on and off the field. The way that Lindor continues to carry himself is in so much a similarity to David Wright, former Mets captain, which is why we fully expect the passing of the torch to happen at some point this year. I joked about in the past, well, not even joked, I suggested in the past how I would love to see David Wright pass the torch at his retirement ceremony there, with his number being forever there at Citi Field, but I also understand not wanting to take away from David's key moments, so I have no issues if that doesn't happen. It's just an interesting thought because the Mets haven't officially labeled Lindor captain. Mendoza and Stearns have spoke glowingly about Lindor as to how he has these captain qualities, but there's clearly a reason as to why they haven't made it official yet. I think that they're waiting for something special at some point across this season, if not next year. But in the case of Francisco Lindor, everybody, without question, he is playing on all full cylinders right now, and to have him red hot to begin the season is in direct hand why the Mets are now 16-7 on the year, the most wins in Major League Baseball among teams eligible at the time of recording this video right now. And to see Lindor doing what he's doing, you have the polar bear doing what he's been doing. When, mind you, Alonso's still batting like just over 300, over 1,000 OPS. Juan Soto's finally starting to heat up, even though he didn't do too much this past game in Game 1 against the Phillies. It's this close to that 3-run ding-dong that we all saw, but sadly it didn't count. Otherwise, it would have been electric. We saw Citi Field roaring, so Soto knows what that experience is like already. Now, on the right side of things, history-wise, for Juan Soto, hitting bombs at Citi Field against opposing teams and not against the Mets here. Little tidbit on Soto too for you guys in case you didn't hear from my post-game show. Juan Soto, fun fact, has 19 home runs against 3 teams in a 3-way tie for the most home runs he's ever hit against one individual organization. The Atlanta Braves are 1. The Mets are 2, and yes, the Phillies are 3. All tied at 19. So what does that mean? Juan Soto needs to go out and hit at least one, if not multiple bombs over the next couple games, and that way he can put the Phillies sole possession of first place on his personal home run leaderboard. Hopefully that happens. But going back to Lindor, knowing that you signed the $765 million man this past offseason in Soto, knowing that you brought Pete Alonso back and they all have the capability to perform at an MVP caliber level, the fact that Francisco Lindor is now heating up the way that he is right now, everybody, he is already in that rightful discussion as an MVP-worthy candidate. And he will continue to play as an MVP-worthy player probably throughout the majority of the season, God willing, he can stay healthy. It all comes down to health and certainly what the Mets have going at Citi Field. And there is one thing in particular that's Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, and everyone else in this Mets lineup has in part credited to the Mets' early success this season, and that's you, the fans. I cannot get over how tremendous of a job so many of you guys watching this video right now have done by going out of your way to attend Mets games to begin the season. Normally, April Mets are a snooze fest, and usually something that you like to skip over the page and get to May or get to June where things start to heat up and the offense certainly starts to heat up along with it. But with a Mets pitching staff that's currently ranked in Major League Baseball at number 1 right now in total pitching, that's how good they've been, and an offense that's getting better game by game, even with their continued runners in scoring position woes, having a packed crowd of right around 40+ thousand for the entire homestand against the Cardinals, 35+ thousand on a Monday night against the Philadelphia Phillies this past night, everybody. This is how the boys are rocking the way that they are. Francisco Lindor hears the north of 40,000 screaming, "My girl," every time he goes up to the plate. And how can he not be energized to give you guys the best product of baseball from Francisco Mr. Smile Lindor possible? I don't know how he can't, because he's feeding off of the energy greatly. Juan Soto's starting to feed off the energy, and he said verbatim, I don't think fans realize just how much of an immediate impact doing that kind of thing, going out your way to do a standing O, giving a roll call, whatever it might be, for a player on the roster does for them mentally. It's huge, and that's why you guys got to continue to show up positively and not on the negative front for this Mets team with the red-hot start that they've had. The Polar Bear loves the fans. He feeds off the fan base as well. Jesse Winker hit himself a bomb in this, 5-4 victory against the Phillies in Game 1. He is a prime example of feeding off of the energy around him. We know that Jesse Winker absolutely loves this Mets fan base. He did as a villain with the Reds, with the Mariners, with the Brewers, Nationals, when he hit that bomb against Adrian Hauser on 4th of July on that 11:30 game that no one was even awake for. Fast forward that same year, he gets traded to the Mets. Hauser gets DFA'd. Everything's right in the world. He has home run heroics there leading into that playoff series against those Phillies and the NLDS where he had heroics, and he did that yet again against Aaron Nola and this Philadelphia Philly team. So Jesse Winker, a prime example of how to go about things greatly with the fans and feeding off of that energy. Now we're seeing our top dogs continue to do exactly that, everybody. Buckle up and get ready. This Mets team is just getting started. And not only are they now 10-1 or so on their homestand, but let's not forget the stats entering this past night's game against the Phillies. The Mets 9-1 to begin the year at home, the best home record to begin a season since, yes, 1986. Also, the last time the Mets went 10-0, for example, to begin a season was the 2015 season, if I'm not mistaken also, but you guys can double check and let me know in the comments down below. Point is that championship mentality is on the mind of this Mets team to begin 2025, and regardless of what does or doesn't happen throughout the course of the year leading into October, you have to be very excited at this point in time with how the boys are playing and knowing that they have yet to fully click on all full cylinders the way that we hope and expect that they will throughout the course of the 162. And in order for the Mets to click on all full cylinders, not only are they going to need to eliminate more of the runner and scoring position woes on the offensive end, but they're also going to need to make sure that they don't have some of the hiccups that they had on the bullpen end, like they had this past night where Mr. No Panic Kranick was fantastic throughout 2 innings, but we pushed our luck a little bit further. He went out for a 3rd inning for the first time this season. Mind you, there have only been 9 relievers this season that have had 3 scoreless inning outings per at least the Philadelphia Phillies broadcast, because I got stuck listening to those schmucks while it was blacked out initially for me for Game 1. Won't be for Game 2, because we're doing a watch party for Game 2 that I'll expand on later on here in the show, everybody. But the point that I'm trying to make is that when we look at what this Mets team is doing so far this season, everybody, they're doing a lot of special things, and they're only going to get better. That is the best part of it all. I apologize as I try to move the one singular hair that was in my peripheral at this very moment, but getting back in here, everybody, Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, everyone else in company has so much to provide for this Mets team. Now you add the depth along with it. It's a great thing. But going from the offense, let's talk now on the pitching end, because on the pitching end in particular, the Mets could utilize and try to fix some things there. Going back to the point on Kranick here, because I lost it for a second, we're back in, then going to have to use Edwin Diaz when you didn't want to use him in a 5-0 game. That's a situation where I think Mendoza maybe could have managed the bullpen a little bit better and not had Kranick to start the inning to begin with, knowing that you're stretching things a bit thin for a guy who's getting the longest outing so far of his young career there, with the Mets at least when facing a Phillies lineup that was just looking to finally do some damage after Tyler McGill carved it up for roughly 6 innings. So now as we evaluate the bullpen, everybody, as Edwin Diaz got absolutely rocked by Bryson Stott, fluctuated with his production. I understand it's not all his fault. It's not his fault he walked into a mess with multiple on and less than 2 outs, but Edwin's paid the big bucks for a reason. And if you're on a $100 million contract, you're expected to go out there and get those key outs and not make that game nearly as sweaty towards the end as it ultimately was for this Mets team. And there is a key reliever on the front of the Mets that could be impacting them greatly as soon as this season, and we're all left wondering what is happening with Dedniel Nunez. So a perfect segue now, everybody, because Dedniel Nunez, as we know, has been pitching in Syracuse. He's had some good outings. He's had some bad outings. And when asked about Dedniel Nunez pregame today, or the past day rather, by Carlos Mendoza, he stated how, it's just pretty much more of a volume thing with Nunez, right? He knows that he's had both ups and downs in Syracuse so far. He just wants to get a little bit more of a look from him, but we know that he's expected to get the call soon, and that could be, again, within the next couple days is what we're looking at from what Carlos Mendoza said himself. And after an outing like this in the bullpen front, where the Mets could have loved a guy like Dedniel Nunez in particular to utilize in that high leverage spot, at least it wasn't high leverage to begin there in the 9th inning, but still, why wouldn't you want a Dedniel Nunez who touches high 90s on the gun and high 80s there on the slider like a mini Edwin Diaz to come in a situation like that in a non-save role? That way you don't have to over-exacerbate a guy like Max Kranick, for example, and then you go on from there. So in the case of Dedniel Nunez, the great news, everybody, is that he is officially coming back soon. There's a great reality that he's going to return to the Mets as soon as this week. The big question now is, When is that going to be? And it honestly goes in direct hand with what the Mets do and don't do on the bullpen end. If they continue to have success the way that they have this season, and if they continue to make sure that maybe this past night's game was more of an anomaly on the bullpen front the remainder of the series against the Phillies, then the Mets are less inclined to rush up Dedniel Nunez when everything's kind of clicking in the bullpen. But as we just saw, this past night was a great example of what we can likely expect at times as times are going to happen throughout the course of 162. This is the hardest competition the Mets have faced so far this year in the Phillies. They didn't hit a lick until the ninth inning, but we all saw how immediate they were on trying to get the momentum in their favor. And if it wasn't for Diaz with some huge strikeouts back-to-back that we saw on Trey and Bryce, who knows what would have happened in that Game 1 matchup. So in the case of Dedniel Nunez, who profiles so greatly as a high-leverage arm for this Mets team, as a true setup man for Edwin Diaz, or as a man that can come in and eat some innings himself as a either save or non-save artist, he is a weapon for this Mets team to utilize. He was going to crack the team out of camp if he was healthy enough and got enough reps, but he had a slow roll in spring training coming back from his injury that derailed him this past season. Nunez, who is one of many great finds, staying in the organization, but David Stearns pointed out over the past year and a half plus, along with Jeremy Hefner, and now let's see what Desi Druskel can do, Mets assistant pitching coach coming from the Yankees this past year, when he can finally get his hands on Nunez at the major league level. I think there's a lot of potential here. And Nunez, we saw that last year as he posted right around like a 2.2 to 2.4 ERA and plenty of outings for the Mets. I love Dedniel Nunez. I think he could be a key weapon in this bullpen. And even if it means that it's going to be the demise of, say, a Danny Young or someone of a lesser degree out of this bullpen as a corresponding move, so be it. Because the Mets have a plethora of arms chilling in Syracuse right now, waiting to make their season debuts. It's not just Dedniel Nunez. It's Jose Urena, who looked really sharp in his last outing that we saw getting a start going 4 shutty for Syracuse in a doubleheader. It's also guys like Rico Garcia, who has a lively fastball and was really interesting as an offseason pickup this past year from the Nationals organization. He's a guy that will certainly eat innings for the Mets at some point this year. Has been off to a good start. Tyler Zuber got absolutely rocked in one of his latest outings, unfortunately. Otherwise, he's been looking really good for Syracuse as a reliever the Mets acquired from the Rays at the trade deadline last year. And then you also have some other guys in Genesis Cabrera, who ate 70 innings last year or so for the Blue Jays, who in my opinion might be a better lefty option than Danny Young there when looking at a lesser leverage lefty option than AJ Minter. That's why I debated about it all spring long, but sadly Cabrera lost the battle between himself and Danny Young, which is why he's been in Syracuse at this point. But the point I'm trying to make is that the Mets do have reinforcements. They have a lot of guys that we really haven't talked about at all this year that will eat innings for them at some point throughout the course of the season. Not just because of inevitable injuries, but inconsistencies and honestly underperformance. And who knows, everybody? Let's see what happens over these next couple of days. All I'm telling you is don't be surprised when you see the breaking news announcement from the Mets themselves saying that we have made the following transaction, that Dedniel Nunez has been called up and yada, yada, yada has been sent down or DFA'd. There's a great reality that's going to happen. Mendoza pretty much reaffirmed that. We just don't have a hard date just yet because it really goes in hand with not only what Nunez is doing on the performance front in Syracuse, but also what the Mets are doing with their bullpen. But when you have had a top 3 bullpen in ERA, the number 1 in WAR entering this past night's game across Major League Baseball, and the top overall pitching staff in the game based on the WAR and ERA up until this point, you haven't really felt the need to rush things too much in the case of Dedniel Nunez, among others, which I wholeheartedly understand. So going from the Dedniel Nunez conversation, everybody, now let's hear what is the latest on Jeff McNeil and Francisco Alvarez. When are they returning this Mets team? And ultimately, what is the expectation for them when they do return to said team? Let's hear what Carlos Mendoza had to say this past day. Apologies, everybody. I just realized I didn't have the audio on because why would I? Of course, I do something wrong. Let me pull this up now, and then we should be good to go.
How did it go with McNeil and Alvarez's check-ins and what's next for them officially?
Yeah, good. Feeling good. I think at this point it's just more building up volume for them, getting used to playing full games, back-to-backs and things like that. So right now the plan is for them to go to AAA. Tomorrow, they're scheduled to play a full game, 9 innings tomorrow. And then I think they have doubleheader on Wednesdays. They play one of them. It's a 7-inning game. And then we have a decision after that.
All right, guys, so you heard it from Mets skipper himself. The following is going to happen. Jeff McNeil and Alvarez are going to be in game action starting tonight, April 22nd, at the time of the majority, if not all, you guys watching this. And then we're going to see Jeff get one game at second base, and the other will be in center field. There is a doubleheader that they have the following day that they're going to do, more than likely. So in the case of that, or whether it's this day, they're going to play at least one of the games, and then they're going to have reps the next day, and then they're going to reevaluate and go from there. So what does that mean? McNeil and Alvarez are 100% returning this Mets team, barring drastic changes from now up until 48 hours from now. They will return for the Mets next series, which will be on the road against the Washington Nationals in what I believe is a 4-game set. Makes endless sense to have Alvarez back by then. He's medically cleared. He will play probably, I'd imagine, half of those games, with Torrens starting the other half. Makes sense to give them a 50-50 even split on that front. And now to hear more as to what the expectation can be with Jeff McNeil especially, this goes to hand with Luisangel Acuna and the Mets center field plans. More of what I've been telling you guys the past couple days, but now it's reaffirmed from Mets Pobo David Stearns himself. Listen up.
Somewhat broader version of Mike's question, but just until Siri comes back, how do you envision that center field playing time breaking down here?
I don't think we know. I think Tyrone's going to get a lot of it, clearly. He's a very gifted center fielder. He can impact the game in a number of different ways, and I think he's starting to take better at bats as well. Beyond that, we'll see. Jeff could be a part of it. Brandon could be a part of it. Louis could be a part of it. I think it's who's playing well, what pitchers we're facing, how we want to structure the lineup on any particular day. But we feel confident we have enough people to play there to cover that position and cover it well.
Alrighty, folks, so David Stearns has confirmed exactly what we've been preaching the past couple of days, which is the following. Guys like McNeil, Nimmo, Acuna, etc., all going to be in a rotation of getting reps at second base. And the simple answer to your question, which is maybe, Wardy, why exactly is that? That's simply because they want to make sure Acuna gets in there every day. He had himself another solid day that we saw, continuing his hit bid. Acuna, with a single that we saw in the Mets' 5-4 victory against the Phillies, extended his hitting streak to 9 games now. And he's batting over 270. He's looking tremendous right now. Actually, as a matter of fact, Acuna is higher than that. Let me double check. Isn't Acuna now? Oh my God. He's at 292 now, guys. He's at 292. I'm not lying. Look at this with Baseball Savant with me. You guys can see right there. Are you kidding me? He's just been off to such a good start this season. If you guys don't know my infatuation with Luisangel Acuna, then you've either been A, living under a rock, or 2, you're new here, and that's fine. I hope it's just the latter, and we're happy to have you. So make sure to smash a like and subscribe on as you chime in. But Acuna has been so much fun to watch every single game. He has been a difference maker. He has done either something on the base pass, defensively, and or offensively to truly separate himself in certain ways in Brett Beatty. And that's exactly why Acuna is not going anywhere anytime soon, but he's going to be here all year long at this rate, and you got to make sure you put him in there, because not only is that speed elite, but he just has so much potential with this Mets team. And we're seeing it blossom now before our very eyes. He's got a 754 OPS and a just under 300 average. That's really good for an Acuna that is not known for the power nearly as much, but he's just such a difference maker in all these other respective areas. So now with Acuna playing the way that he has, and now that McNeil is returning, it makes sense that the Mets are doing the rotation the way that they are right now, because the upside of having a rotation of multiple guys in center field, while yes, the downside is stability, the upside is the fact that you are going to have an abundance of riches with options from on the bench to in the starting lineup, which means that when the Mets go, say, against a lefty and they want to go righty heavy in their matchup, that's where they can heavily prioritize guys like Luisangel Acuna, where you're going to probably have, say, Acuna in there. I apologize, everybody. Let me say Acuna will get in there to face the lefty, especially either at second base or center field. McNeil will play the other position that the other isn't, and then you go from there. But if it's, say, a matchup that favors a lot of lefty batters, then you can shift Nimmo to center. You can have McNeil in left. You can have Jesse Winker at DH, or pardon me, everybody. You can have Starling Marte at DH here in that sense, and then you can see at second base who you want in that respective matchup, right? What makes most sense for them? It can be McNeil at second base, and then maybe you're going to toy with Marte either at DH or the corner outfield, even though we don't really want him in the outfield much at this point. Point I'm trying to make, though, is that based on the certain pitching matchups, the Mets are going to be able to get very creative. And there's a world where even with McNeil returning, Brett Baty could stay on this roster if they feel that he's worthy of kind of being that utility option for them, getting some starts at second and or third base with Vientos either at DH or coming off the bench based on certain matchups. Vientos will likely be in tonight's lineup, as we know, coming back from his little groin injury he had a couple days ago that appeared that happened after he made that great leaping grab there at the hot corner. So, of course, greatest play yet he makes at third base, and it comes with an unfortunate tweak. But again, he thinks it was just from dehydration. So the Mets just haven't needed to rush Vientos in because they continue to win no matter what right now. So in the case of what they're going to do with McNeil and Alvarez, expect Alvarez back for that National Series, expect McNeil back for that National Series, and expect both of them to get solid playing time. Alvarez will platoon pretty heavily there with Terens, and they'll just kind of battle it out to see who's performing better, might warrant a little bit more playing time than the other. And then in the case of Jeff McNeil, he'll be getting reps at center, left, and yes, second base. So it'll all just be indicative on matchups, what's best for him, what's best for the team. And the best part of it all, everybody, is that if, say, McNeil comes back and doesn't perform well, we have options to make sure that we aren't stuck with him in the lineup every single day, should we not wish to do so. Regardless of the millions that he's making this year, with, say, $30 million left for this and next year on his contract, doesn't change the fact that Jeff McNeil profiles best as a utility man, and that wouldn't shock me if he finds himself more in that role than not this year, should say he be better in that sporadic sample size than getting daily reps. But guys, we'll see what happens on the McNeil front. I'm just excited to see them back with this Mets team, because it's always good to have good Mets players back with this team, even when things are riding hot, which means that things could potentially only get better from there. And speaking of getting better, that's what we hope the Mets can do tonight to secure a series victory, Game 2 against the Phillies. So let's give you guys a quick preview of exactly that, as you have southpaw Christopher Sanchez with his sub-3 ERA facing off there against Mr. Griffin Canning with his 3.43 ERA. Canning's coming off of his best start of the season versus Mr. Christopher Sanchez was nails last year for the Phillies as a southpaw option, but dominated at home a lot at Citizens Bank Park. And the Phillies went out of their way to avoid Sanchez from pitching at Citi Field during the postseason because they want to maximize the home potential of him dominating with a roaring Phillies crowd versus a roaring crowd against him at Citi Field, which is what makes this a very exciting test for both sides. In the case of Sanchez, he's a crafty southpaw who's had a lot of success the past year and a half, being stretched as a full-time starter now for the Phillies. And in the case of Griffin Canning, he's coming off of his strongest start yet, but he hasn't had any test remotely close to facing a boomer bust Philadelphia Phillies lineup that can eat up meatball fastballs for breakfast, which means that Canning is going to need to be precise on his location, or he could be out of there in, say, 3-4 innings if things don't go well in the walk rate especially. So big test for both sides on the pitching end, especially in the case of the Mets. How do they fare against the lefty Sanchez? We know that Alonso has struggled with the lefty battles in recent years. Can he continue his roaring hot start with a key game here against that being Sanchez? Marte is going to get the start more than likely. Jesse Winker, I'm not opposed to doing lefty-lefty, but I see them likely putting Marte in there, barring changes. And then what we get from Juan Soto, right? Juan Soto and Brandon Nimmo are two guys I'm paying heavy, close attention to. Not only does Nimmo need to continue to get in an offensive groove, but no better time to do it against a Philadelphia Philly that he knows well. Both he and Soto have tremendous numbers in their career against left-handers, and that's one of the things that I think is a misconception with some teams as they evaluate the Mets lineup. It feels like they forget sometimes when they bring in but rather a new reliever, a southpaw reliever, to then face Juan Soto or Nimmo. I'm like, did they even bother to check the playbook once? Because everything would tell you not to bring in a lefty specialist to face two lefty hitters that specialize in hitting lefties especially well. See all these specialties? It makes sense because Soto dominates against lefties. He's batting like 500 plus against them right now this season, or close to. Brandon Nimmo usually does very well against lefties, so I'm keeping an eye out for those lefty bats in particular in this matchup. And I'm also keeping a further eye out on Luis Angel Acuna, which should be getting the start yet again at second base. Let's see how he fares against the southpaw. I would love to see a multi-hit game from him, the same way I want to see Juan Soto hit his first home run at Citi Field. That will count this time and actually be in a Mets uniform for a change, and not as a Washington National, a New York Yankee, or a San Diego Padre, everybody. This is a key game too, because if the Mets can secure the series victory now, yes, the rubber match, we obviously want to see them sweep, and I will actually be attending. There's a solid chance, everybody, that Wardy will be attending Wednesday's game, barring changes. I will give you guys a full update at some point today, probably at the time you're watching this, April 22nd, on the community tab, but be on the lookout because, like I said, Solid chance for Wednesday. I will try to attend, even if it's a snooze fest offensively, because you go from a night to a day game. I just have to be at Citi Field. I miss it so much. It's been roaring every single day there. I think it's only going to get better before it potentially gets worse. So I'm excited to see what the boys will do over the next couple days. But if they can secure another series victory, that'll then make the Mets 11-1 on their homestand or so, and another key series in the books for them. So before I let you go, everybody, I got to remind you what we are doing later on today. For many of you guys watching this, starting 6:45 p.m. Eastern, we are doing our latest big watch party, folks, with our friends at Playback.tv. In case you guys don't know, Playback is a revolutionary sports app, which if you guys simply sign up by using the link down below in the description of this video, it's Playback.tv/WardyNYM. Join my room, sign up for free with your account. All you need is an MLB TV subscription. That's it, everybody. This game will be broadcasted, if I'm not mistaken, on TBS too, but that shouldn't change the fact of what we'll be doing here. If you guys have an MLB TV subscription and you guys want to chime in and watch a game live with your guy Wardy, you can do that better than ever before. We're actually going to watch the Mets game live broadcast. We're going to listen to the broadcast, and I'm going to share my own play-by-play commentary and reactions along with each and every one of you. Again, that is Playback.tv/WardyNYM, officially beginning live at 6:45 p.m. Eastern or so. We're going to be live in the Playback app to actually watch the game, where I'm going to interact with the chat as I always do, as well as on YouTube, where I'll be simulcasted, where just a scoreboard will be shown, because I can't actually show the game itself on YouTube, obviously. But Playback is officially partnered and licensed with MLB, as they are with other major sports. So very exciting to continue to do work with them for our latest watch party. Check it out by clicking that link down below. We already have over 230 plus members, as that is a live update from the past time I spoke about this. We've had a lot of fun in these. So again, guys, you can chime in live on YouTube if you don't have an MLB TV subscription and still want to hang out with your guy Wardy, or if you want the full in-game experience for a true in-game watch party, make sure you have your subscription ready. Sign up if you haven't already. Click that link down below, and thank you guys kindly for doing exactly that. But folks, that's all I got for you. We talked about Lindor, we talked about Nunez, we talked about McNeil, Alvarez, and everything else in Mets land. So it's time for Wardy to get out of here. I will see you all for in-game and post-game coverage later on today at the time of recording this. Until then, folks, have a fantastic rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. This is your guy Wardy signing out. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace.